Yo guys, welcome back to Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park. My name's Attacking Toucans, and today I have the very first co-commentator for this whole entire series. On episode 54, it's kind of crazy. But I've mentioned him in a couple of the earlier videos because he's been helping me learn a bit more about coasters, and I'll let him introduce himself real fast.
Hey guys, it's Troy here, also known as TWD98.
TWD Money is what they call him.
And I play Mario Kart on my YouTube channel, but roller coasters have been a passion of mine since I was a kid, and I saw Tyler's insane theme park and I was like, Tyler, let me build a roller coaster. And here we are.
So today we're going to be building a brand new coaster in the park, and Troy is the person who guided the whole entire process. I was still building because he hasn't actually played the game, so he doesn't know the controls, but he guided me and we built this coaster together, and then afterwards I go through and add that scenery touch.
The Imagineering.
Yeah, right? I Imagineer it up.
Yeah, so I looked at all of Tyler's roller coasters and they aren't realistic, but the scenery and the visuals around the whole park is some of the best I've ever seen. I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon all the time, and this is way better than anything I ever made. But when it comes to a roller coaster standpoint, I've been a roller coaster enthusiast for years. So I've ridden over 180 different roller coasters in my life, and I just know the industry and all the manufacturers and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, let me help you build a realistic roller coaster and see if you like that process instead of making the more insane ones.
So yeah, I definitely enjoyed the process of making a more realistic coaster and looking more at the G-force and stuff like that when building it, and being more mindful of what good elements of coasters were, because I wasn't very aware of that until we started talking about good coaster elements. But first, I think we should talk about the type of coaster we're building.
So this coaster is inspired off of a model that my favorite roller coaster manufacturer, Intamin, creates, and that's their Intamin Blitz coaster, or in other words, Intamin Megalite. It's kind of like a hybrid of the two of those things. Unfortunately, we do not have any Intamin Megalites in America, but we do have some crazy Intamin coasters like Maverick, Skyrush, Intimidator 305. Some of you guys might recognize those names if you live near parks like Cedar Point or King's Dominion or Hershey Park.
All right, cool. So what are some of the most distinguishable features of Intamin coasters?
So I can recognize an Intamin coaster pretty quickly just by the style of trains they use.
Yeah.
And more importantly, the track type. And Intamin coasters, this one specifically, which is what it's based off of, has a triangular prism style track design.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It looks like it's really structurally sound, honestly.
Yeah, it's really cool, and they're very photogenic. Now, as for Intamin restraints, they vary completely on what type of ride is being offered. This coaster does not go upside down, which means it would not need over-the-shoulder restraints.
Which is pretty good.
Which is great. And over-the-shoulder restraints, when you grab the harnesses above you and you pull them down, and they're right next to your head, and anytime you have any laterals, any sort of turns, it's very easy to bump your head on over-the-shoulder restraints. So they're not very
I don't
popular.
mind them as bad since I'm really tall. As a tall person, your opinion on restraints is actually completely different.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I'm a huge fan on lap bars, even when the knee bar isn't used. The knee bars can be a bit annoying, but they are the new way of having over-the-shoulder restraints for rides that go upside down. But whenever rides just feature a lap bar, like a T-bar, they're super comfortable. So an Intamin coaster like Accelerator or Top Thrill Dragster or Millennium Force, those ones are my favorite types of restraints. And this coaster would have very similar restraints to those.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going to be a very comfortable, but that's because it doesn't go very high, it doesn't go very fast. The main focus on this coaster was to focus on airtime, because that's something I haven't focused on a lot on the other coasters in the park, because I kind of focused on just the looks and making them look cool, not necessarily fun to ride. So
yeah, and we also focused on G-force in general, We don't do anything too unrealistic with G-force.
Now, I know I've talked a little bit about G-force during the series, but I think you could honestly do a way better job at explaining G-force and why certain elements and certain G-force elements are more fun than others.
Yeah, for sure. So there's many different types of G-force, and the two that we're going to focus on talking about here are the positive and negative Gs, which are super prominent in almost every single roller coaster. Positive Gs make it so you feel like you're heavier than you actually are during a roller coaster. So that happens a lot on vertical loops and at the very bottoms of giant drops. You feel like you're being forced into your seat.
For the most part, positive Gs have been the main focus in this theme park. I haven't put a whole lot of negative Gs.
Yeah.
If you want to explain how negative.
For sure. Negative Gs make it so you kind of have that weightless feeling, or it almost feels like your stomach is rising above to your chest.
Yeah.
You know, some people really don't like the feeling and other people crave it. And I'm someone who craves it. I can't get enough negative G's in a roller coaster. So at 1G, that's what your body's experiencing normally. That's your standard weight. And then 2Gs would be double your weight, and 0Gs would be the feeling of weightlessness. There's actually an element called the 0G roll that you have on some of your roller coasters in the park, which is a feeling of complete weightlessness. And then
That's your favorite element, right?
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I really like 0G rolls. So -1 is like feeling like your stomach is rising to your chest. And
Okay.
-2 is like pretty much as far as roller coasters go. Some of the craziest ones reach -2, like DC Rivals in Australia or Sky Rush in Hershey Park. And roller coasters in general don't really go beyond -2 Gs for a sustained amount of time, almost ever. -3+ is really dangerous. Some of
Probably
your
kill you.
coasters,
Yeah, I think some of my coasters do go that far. Maybe
for positive and negative, they go a little bit too high on both directions. But that's the fun in it, you know. You have
the
some
people in
crazy
this
coasters.
park they're superhuman.
Yeah.
They can sustain a little bit more than what basic humans
That's
are able
true.
to sustain.
That's true.
So we're right in the POV right now, and I think that one of the main things to point out about this coaster is that it doesn't go super fast. It doesn't go very high. It just kind of lays close to the ground, and we focus a lot on airtime hills and providing as much negative G's as possible. That feeling of weightlessness and that feeling of your stomach raising up.
The cool thing about this ride is there's a lot of different types of hills in it. It's not just the same hill over and over again. Lots of turning while going over the hills, you know? There's some wave turns, some ejector hills, and there is a lot of changes we make from the POV you just saw to what the end result ends up looking. So we smoothed the ride out a lot, made the transitions better. The roller coaster had a few awkward transitions originally, almost like arrow transitions.
Yeah.
But it looks amazing towards the end. And this is
Sometimes you
where-
can't tell that it's awkward until you ride it back and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel right. You have to go and keep on making changes over and over again.
This coaster is also a terrain coaster, which is really cool. And Tyler was able to terraform the surrounding area to make it so it weaves in and outs of these like different caves throughout the ride. And that makes it similar to like Nemesis in Alton Towers or Terran in Fantasialand. And terrain coasters are often really cool. They're kind of rare.
It made it really fun to decorate because most of the coasters are really high up in the air and are going up and down a lot, so it's hard to like have scenery elements that are close to the track. But since this coaster is hugging the ground almost the whole entire time, I was able to add a lot of different scenery elements. And I think as far as the scenery goes, is whenever you're on the ride, not from a distance necessarily, but riding the ride, the scenery is the most entertaining.
Absolutely, that's so true. We even got like a pond here, and then do you want to talk about what the ride is themed off of? Because they won't see it yet, but eventually the distinguishable theme is going to come into place.
So the overall theme that we decided to go with on this ride was a adventurer's theme, almost like a Indiana Jones kind of Mayan ruin, ancient civilization. And it's like you're going on an adventure through the jungle, and you see lots of forbidden temples and statues, and there's lots of alligators and snakes and a lot of dangerous elements.
Yeah, and because the coaster is so low to the ground almost the entire ride, aside from when it pops up for the airtime hills, you really get to interact with the scenery a lot, and that's one of the coolest parts about it. It's also tucked away in the corner of the park, and it's cool because like there's this surrounding area that's going to be built around in future episodes. So it's going to be really cool to see this entire area come into fruition.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that we're doing a adventurer theme area because I hadn't originally planned to make this section of the park adventure theme. I was going to go with like a Wild West theme, but I was looking at the scenery elements and this just had a lot more I could use it for. And there's just so many different pieces in the adventure set. Now, originally we were going to make this themed after California, and that's why it was blue and I started placing some palm trees. But then like after thinking about it, I'm like, we should go for an adventure like jungle theme because there's a lot more pieces and a lot more scenery that would go along with that theme. And so just like right off the bat, I just started building a ancient looking temple, and this is where the climax of the ride is located.
So right before this roller coaster enters the temple, there's this really cool element called a double down, which we've implemented. And the roller coaster will go down a hill, level out, and then go down another hill. And then when it enters the temple, it actually launches up to about 54 miles an hour before it goes into a Outer Bank airtime hill. And this is a brand new element that RMC kind of pioneered. Roller coasters with that include like Steel Vengeance, and now Intamin has started to add it to their roller coasters. Pantheon, that's going to come out next year.
I think it's one of the most like unique style, because normally whenever you curve through a hill, you kind of lean in with it, but on this outer bank, it makes you lean outwards, so it just kind of like throws you off. It is the exact opposite of what a coaster normally would do.
Yeah, I've actually never experienced one myself, but I've heard they're very forceful. It's really new. And before that, there used to be outer bank turns on the almost like the Wild Mouse-esque like El Loco SNS models. So this is really exciting, and it's so awesome how like Planet Coaster even allows you to do this. I used to play Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, and we did not have this many options.
No, the tracks were not nearly as flexible in those games. You had like pretty much a set amount of pieces you could use. There was 3 types of turns. There was small, large, and extra large curves, and that was all you had. And then there was just slight bank and extreme banking.
Yeah, so when we designed this roller coaster, one of my favorite parts was after we finished the rough layout of the course, I got to watch you design these crazy pieces of architecture. And this one, it was so cool because Tyler just pretty much did this on a whim. Didn't even like look up any building tutorials or whatever. Just like started placing pieces, and I was like, whoa! And it just all came together. It's really cool.
This is a kind of simplistic structure. It's pretty square.
Yeah, for you, you should have saw what I built in Roller Coaster Tycoon. It was not pretty. It was not like this. So the ride is gonna actually get some cool special effects towards the end. We got some tiki torches that are lit up with some fog effects, so it'll just embellish that part of the ride because, you know, they're gonna launch into...
I also want to get a recording of you laughing really menacingly, and then I'll slow it down.
Oh
and
my
as you launch through the temple, we can have
do that.
I could have your voice go mwahahaha.
That's actually so funny.
That would be a meme right there.
I'm so down for that. Here's the torches being added. Another really cool thing I want to talk about is the placement of the structure, because halfway through the double down, it looks like you're gonna run into the temple and then it dips again, which is genius.
Yeah, it definitely like throws you off. It's almost like a jump scare for a coaster.
Yeah.
Is there like a name for that?
I'm not exactly sure, but it is the only double down in the coaster, so they're not gonna be used to that element, so it's gonna be like, whoa, you know? And then there are some near misses, and that might be what you're thinking of.
I think so.
Because that is an actual term, and that's used when you get really close to like a prop or a tunnel or a support on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like from a previous part of the ride, and it kind of feels like because you're going so fast that you're gonna hit it, even though it's actually further away than it appears.
One of the things you think you're about to be chopped in half or about to like be decapitated, but like nope.
Yeah, and right after the first drop on this roller coaster, we have a giant turn instead of going into another hill.
That was like one coaster element I never thought of before, because I feel like I've never been on a coaster that does that, where you go down the first main drop and you don't go back up.
Yeah, so Intamin Megalights do that, and so does Intimidator 305, which is one of the most forceful moments on any roller coaster, that first turn after the giant drop.
So is that first turn fun to go through with how forceful it is?
Extremely like positive G forceful.
Yeah.
So it'll actually make you gray out a little bit the more intense it is.
Okay.
So you gray out, and then all of a sudden you come into some negative G's, and then you're like, whoa, you know, and then some positive G's in another hill. So there's a lot of transitioning. It's really cool. Yeah, so that's what this coaster tries to do. But like we talked about earlier, this is a less extreme version than some of those really insane coasters like Intimidator 305, for example.
Well, the main reason we did that is because you pointed out that almost every single coaster in this park, there's nothing really that is for an all ages coaster. Most of it is like kind of adults. Most of it's
superhumans.
Yeah, most of it's for superhumans, adults, stuff like that. This is a coaster that like the whole entire, not the whole family necessarily, but
anyone over like 4 feet tall could ride this, and they would be scared of it. And you know, kids, they love that weightlessness feeling most of the time. Like I will be in line for a roller coaster, some of the biggest ones in the world, and there'll be like a 9-year-old next to me, and they're fearless, and it's crazy.
Dang. How old were you when you rode your first actual roller coaster?
So, yeah, the first roller coaster I rode that was like a big kid roller coaster was California Screamin' at California Adventure. It's now called Incredicoaster, and it goes 55 miles an hour, 120-foot drop, one inversion, a loop, and I was so scared for the loop. I thought I was gonna fall out.
They took the loop out, didn't they?
I was like 7. They don't have the loop out, do they?
I can't remember. Didn't they take it out?
I will be so flabbergasted if that's true.
Let me look it up.
We are checking right now. Yeah, it's there. It's there. Yeah. It's because they got rid of the Mickey ears on the loop, and that's probably why.
Yeah, that's probably why I thought it was different. That's really dope. I've actually ridden both versions of it. The California Screamer.
California Screamin'.
It's California Screamin' and the Incredicoaster. And I think the Incredicoaster is actually cooler because they put like little movie scenes inside the tunnels, which It was very unique. My first coaster was Mr. Freeze.
That's a really cool coaster, I've heard.
Yeah, it's awesome. Never been on it?
No, it's made by Premier Rides. It has a top hat that's inverted, and those are extremely rare, so I've never experienced one of those, really.
Dude, it's super fun. They have two. I've been on two of them, actually. St. Louis and in...
Over Texas. Those are the only two in the world. Yeah.
Yep.
I went to Over Texas, and it was closed, so it's the only ride I didn't get to ride.
It's definitely worth it. I'm surprised they haven't used the model more.
Yeah, I've heard it's just a maintenance nightmare. That's the only problem.
Oh.
So, unfortunate. But I'm sure they could make a better version today that would run more successfully more often.
I feel like it's never been closed down when I've gone. Maybe I'm just lucky.
Yeah,
Mr.
you're
Freeze,
lucky.
Mr. Freeze is my dad.
That's actually one of the big reasons that Intamin coasters get a lot of hate, because they break down a lot. They're always innovating, which means they're trying new stuff. And when they try new stuff, things don't always work out. So
Yeah.
some parks
It's
don't
weird
work
trying to
with
find
Intamin.
that like business, that balance of being creative but also having a good business model and being efficient with your money and your guests. And
Yeah.
be realistic with that. So now we're working on the station, and this station I decided to take a completely different approach by making the whole entire thing underground and making it seem like you're going inside a cave, like you're going spelunking, and then after going deep inside this cave you find this ancient temple, and that's where the coaster begins.
This station's so cool. I love how it just like molds into the ground, you know?
Yeah, it takes a while to start blending it in and making it not stick out like a sore thumb, but I do my best to naturalize it and make it all fit together in the future.
You also put a little transfer track where you can put a secondary train, so you're making it more realistic there. You remember you told me, you're like, I've never actually put one of these in. So you have a little piece of track off to the side.
Yeah, I wish I could put a fake train on there. I'm not sure if that's possible, but I thought like the thought that counts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a reference. You can sort of tell what I was doing.
For sure, yeah. So most of the queue line is inside this cave, and I remember you said that there's not a single window inside the cave, right?
Yeah.
Even though it is technically above ground for most of it when you're in the queue.
I wanted to make it seem like you're going really, really deep into a cave, and then you suddenly come across this coaster station. I didn't want it to seem like you were like close to the entrance or whatever.
Definitely. The roller coaster, you can kind of see how it launches up from here because the coaster keeps retesting, and it has like a 25-mile-an-hour launch up the hill, just like Maverick. So when it crests over the first drop, it has a lot of speed, unlike when roller coasters often just crawl over the first drop. One of my least favorite things about being in the front of a roller coaster is it has to get partway down the first drop before you
start
feel
going
anything.
fast.
But if you're in the back, it lunges over the first drop.
Yeah.
So this roller coaster is designed so even in the front seat, you'll feel like you're actually getting quite a bit of air on the first drop.
Even though the first drop isn't super high, it's way more fun because you're going over the crest. Like you're getting airtime on that very first
Exactly,
drop, which you
and
normally don't get that.
This part of the ride was definitely inspired by Maverick at Cedar Point because I really like how Maverick does that. Maverick has a 95-degree drop going into that, so we didn't go that crazy with it, but instead we went for like about an 80-degree drop.
Also, something I did in this cave that added a lot of extra polygons to this build was the flooring. I made it all individual blocks because there's like these individual block pieces, and I thought it would make the floor look like it has a cooler texture if there was actual like indentions, sort of like tiles. So I went through and I individually like copied and pasted them so there would be a more realistic looking stone brick flooring that had official depth to it instead of just using a plain floor piece. And I think it was a really cool effect overall.
Yeah, it's so cool seeing this come together so quickly because this is like hours and hours of work, and then it's just being sped up times 10.
Yeah, it just gets thrown together really fast.
Yeah, I remember when I like went to shower, and then I went to go get food, and then I came back, and then like this entire station was completed.
You know, I just had a really fun time decorating this coaster. I just really liked this scenery set and the theming, and I liked having a lot of block pieces. It gave me a lot of versatility for building the structures. And most of the building types don't allow you to have all of these intricate little pieces that you can move around and do whatever you want with them. So I legitimately just enjoyed just like adding these trim pieces and random little decorations, and it came together really quickly. And since I did the jungle theme, there's a lot of extra plants and bushes and different types of wildlife that helps tie it all in together and make it look more realistic. And it was just a really fun process decorating this coaster, which is not always that way, but this one is exceptionally fun.
I think it has like a more artistic feel because it's like ancient ruins. There's no like right or wrong way to do it. You can just like throw stuff on the ground, broken pieces everywhere, and it looks good.
Yeah, that's true. Having rubble on the ground
yeah.
looks super cool. It adds that aesthetic to it.
Like if you've ever seen like Machu Picchu, you know,
I didn't hear of Machu Picchu, but through a little jump at it, we were able to pause real fast, and I was able to Google image, and I'm like, oh yeah, that place. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you can definitely draw some similarities there, and that is an extremely famous tourist spot of this ancient civilization and their city. And you can tell, even though they preserved it really well, it's still, it's just in pieces compared to what it used to be. And that's what this roller coaster is like. There's a lot of pieces. Like some structures are fully, in great shape, and then there's just broken stuff on the ground next to it.
Yeah, I'm even gonna have to go back later and just distress things even more and just add even more rubble and stuff, because I feel like realistically, in an area like this, there would be rubble everywhere just because of all the weather and just the wear and tear.
Oh yeah.
Over years and years.
And this is really cool. I told Tyler I really wanted a waterfall because in Roller Coaster Tycoon, I was obsessed with putting waterfalls next to all my roller coasters. So after the wave turn, it's curving to the left, and then it transitions to a right bank, and it passes by the waterfall, so you get a nice view of it when you're riding the coaster. And this is actually right above the station, which is so great. And
this all blends in, yeah.
And you added like a little pond on top, right?
I didn't build a building for this station. It's all just a big blotch of rock.
It's so cool.
But yeah, building waterfalls and planet coasters is interesting. It's really different from Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, because in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, you actually had to make two bodies of water, and you connected them. If they weren't close enough, it wouldn't create the waterfall.
Exactly.
But in this game, you just have the waterfall texture pieces, and you just kind of place them in. And I would say there's actually pros and cons to both, because the con to this is it doesn't actually look like the water is flowing out of a pool into the next pool. It kind of looks a little bit disconnected, but it's fine from a distance. It's almost like a bit of an art style.
Definitely. I really enjoy scenery in European parks. One day I want to go to Europe to ride more of the coasters there, because I've only been to a couple parks in Sweden, and they really do a great job of having both thrills and theming. And in America, it kind of feels like we get one or the other.
That really explains why I like decorating my coasters so much, because I'm Swedish. So, so that explains everything.
Yeah. And the thing is like, we have the Six Flags and Cedar Fair parks, and then we have like the Disney and Universal, right?
Yeah.
But there aren't too many parks that do both. That's why I went to Silver Dollar City recently, which is where you're from. Missouri.
And Troy got to go to Silver Dollar City, the one I mentioned throughout this whole entire series, because that's my home park.
That park does a great job of incorporating both thrills and theming.
He got to ride the Time Traveler, and I haven't had the chance to ride it yet.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of a roller coaster that does both. The station is something I've never seen before. So many cool
They do
pieces.
a phenomenal job with the stations in Silver Dollar City. Do you actually have a favorite coaster station out of all the theme parks you've been to in your life?
Yeah, it's Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City.
Wait, that actually is your favorite
so
now?
good, yeah.
I've seen the videos and stuff.
There are some Disney rides that have amazing queue lines, stations, scenery. My favorite overall ride for scenery is Indiana Jones at Disneyland in Anaheim, right here.
Yeah.
Local. That's my favorite.
It's really, really good. I actually love that ride. It's probably my favorite ride at Disney.
Yeah, me too. And the thing is they're building this new Star Wars ride in the new area called Galaxy's Edge. Yeah. And that comes out in January here in Anaheim, and then it comes out really soon in December in Florida. And that's supposed to be their craziest themed ride yet.
That's really exciting to think about.
It's not a roller coaster. It's kind of like Indiana Jones-esque, where it's more of like a dark ride. It's going to be on a track and kind of meander around. Doesn't actually deal with gravity at all like roller coasters do.
But also something else that I had to work on at the same time, and I started doing it I started at the outline of this episode, is the station for this launch coaster that I've been neglecting for 8 or 9 episodes at least now. Finally started building it, and I'm going to do a lot more in the next episode. Speaking of the next episode, Troy won't be here for co-commentary, but him and I went through and made a lot of changes to a lot of the coasters in the park to make them either more realistic or just make them look nicer in one way or another.
Yeah, don't worry, we didn't de-crazify every single ride, but
I don't think we didn't de-crazify anything. We just made some slight changes, either switch out the carts on the stand-up coasters.
Yeah, we got rid of the stand-up coasters because I do not like stand-up coasters. I explained to Tyler having a 200-foot plus stand-up coaster is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah,
and he agreed with me. And then the wooden coaster actually went through some awesome changes. So that one's a lot more realistic now, and it's a massive 180-foot wooden coaster.
Way more fun now. And it looks like we're just about at the end of this episode, but before we end, we're going to be able to watch the POV of the ride, and we'll describe what's going on a little bit as we're riding the ride. Alright, so I'm going to let Troy take the ropes here and explain what's happening on this coaster.
So after it launches 25 miles per hour up the lift hill, it has a 100-foot drop into this massive 80-degree overbank turn. Then it's going to come over the top as it dips, and then we have the biggest ejector hill in the ride, reaching about like negative 1.8 Gs, which is crazy. We have a wave turn like Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland, and then water squirts up just like Maverick at Cedar Point as it goes past that giant U-turn. Got some airtime hills that are curvy. And then after the double down, we have the launch into the Outer Bank airtime hill.
Whew.
Now that's really something new we talked about before. Then it's got another twisty drop and then some bunny hills to end the ride. This is more like floater air, 3 of them into the station, and then we hit the brake run.
Yeah, just to make it fun all the way to the very end. But that is going to be the end of this episode. In the next episode, I'm going to continue decorating this coaster, and it's going to look much better than it already is, and I'm pretty excited. But anyways, I want to give a shout out to Troy for joining me. Thank you so much for being the first guest on this series after 2.5 years. It's freaking hilarious to me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah, this was a really great collaboration, and I think it made the best coaster in the park. Troy makes his own YouTube videos and does Twitch streams as well. He's a really good Mario Kart Wii player. He's all into the Mario Kart Wii mods and stuff. He makes awesome videos, so you should go and check his channel out. I'll put the link in the description for you to do that. And hopefully, he'll probably be on another episode in the future.
It was so fun to design that coaster. I'd love to help you design coasters. I can't really help you too much with theming. That's more your thing. But when it comes to elements on coasters, that's where my ideas come.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's nice having somebody just talk about other theme parks and coasters to connect with other people that are watching this series that I won't be able to connect with because I don't have those experiences.
Yeah, guys, I'm slowly turning Tyler into a coaster enthusiast.
Yeah, we'll see. I can't wait till Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park 2 in 5 years, and it's going to be a completely different experience because I'll actually know what I'm doing next time. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
See,
I think we're good.
We got it.
Yeah.